First and foremost, I need to address the men. I think men don't understand what dowry is. For those people who are older and they understand, a person used to go for an African wedding and they were allowed to marry. If on the night of that wedding you found out that she's not a virgin, they used to return your dowry in full. Dowry is payable to virgins. Now today I'm seeing somebody has been a community wife all over here giving things for free. Now she wants them to be paid for in the name of dowry. Men, go and check with every African community, even the Muslims today. Dowry was payable to virgins. You have been here all over loitering the whole of Nairobi. We know you've been a community girlfriend. And then now you come and say, for this which I have been giving out for free to every other person like biscuits, now I want a dowry paid for it. Dowry was payable for virgins. Let that be very clear.
In all cultures?
In all cultures. I have not seen a culture where people used to come and pay. That doesn't happen in the African. So you cannot say you're an African, but when it comes to issues of dowry and virginity, you're not an African. But have my family far from my family. You know, family that I'm forming far from the family I come from. Although there are these mother-in-laws who will always follow you and come and stay in your house and disturb your wife. Those are psychosocial problems. Those ones are best dealt with psychiatrists, because how do you explain a mother who leaves the husband? And many women do that. I've not heard of men who go and say, I'm going to live with my children. But women do that. I have seen men who have not been able to buy a water tank in their home, and they are building a house at the home where the wife came from. They are building a house like I get married, and then where I married from, I have already built a good house for my mother-in-law. I have bought them a cow, they are milking, they have an income. But where I came from as a man, I have never even bought a tank, a water storage tank. Sometimes when men become, or when men fall in love or grow in love, or become stupid about love, whichever is more accurate, they make decisions where you become very self-denying to please someone else, and sometimes to your own detriment. So I think I'd also like to ask those people who are in marriages to be very balanced, to ujiite kamukutano, as they say. Hapo nyuma ya tent, you ask yourself, unajigonga akili, wait, am I okay? So for women, it's very interesting. And I have always told people, women are only loyal to their own feelings. They're only loyal to what they want. That's why you hear a woman who live here, go get married to King Julius Caesar, the man who ruled the whole known world, but still cheat on Julius Caesar. But then let me tell you, when you hear there's a tobacco bill in Parliament, there are interested parties that support it. When you hear there is an adolescent reproductive health policy, there is an organization, probably an organization that is selling family planning stuff and so on and so forth, that is involved. 2027 is coming. There is a bill for older people. Will you vote back the same people who are not? I mean, start thinking of sponsoring. I know you vied last time, and I pray they give you votes. Because if you offer yourself again and they give you votes, then this is one of the things you would run with and champion.
Exactly.
Let us look for people who stand for something before they are even voted for. And this is one of those things. So Kenyans, over to you.
Hello viewers, and welcome to Lucy Mworia Network. Once again, I said many times that this channel, it's for everyone. It's for inspiring, it's for educating and giving information. And we are concentrating on families, especially single, parenthood, and older people in our society. We've had several ladies in our show lately talking about this on the side of single motherhood. I have someone today, special, well known to you, who is not a single father, but he knows so much because through his work he has a lot of experience on counseling on these families. And with us today we do have
my name is Fanya Mambo Kinuthia.
Karibu Fanya Mambo.
Nashukuru, I'm happy to be here.
Tumeongea siasa sana.
Hata mimi nimeongea siasa, nimechoka sasa.
Umechoka. Wacha turundi kwa families sasa.
Yes.
Today I would like us to discuss about families, single-handed families, and this time it is a single father-handed family, and also the effect of the single parenthood on the boy child.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to say I don't do counseling. I do mediation. I run a mediation only firm. So I help because people are not able to draw a distinction between mediation and counseling. I don't do counseling. I'm not a counseling psychologist. I'm a lawyer by training. So we help people resolve their disputes out of court. And some of the disputes we do resolve out of court is family disputes. And so I have encountered quite a good number of them. Families where the man separates with the wife and the children, for one reason or another, end up being raised by the father and not the mother. Because ordinarily, in many circumstances, it's the women who end up with the children. But I have had a few cases where it's the man who ends up with the children. Well, does it affect the children? Yes. I think both positively and negatively. One thing that people forget is that sometimes you are better off living separate lives happily, as opposed to living in a toxic union where the children are seeing father and mother, one not talking to each other, father and mother staying in different bedrooms, because that happens a lot, father and mother having absolutely no respect for one another. And so when children see that, they think that when I get married, it will be normal for me to stay 3 months having never spoken to my wife or having never spoken to my husband. It will be normal for me to have my own bedroom and my husband or my wife to have a different bedroom. So sometimes some separations are not bad. They probably even have a better psychological effect on the children because it gives them stability and they're able to learn not to stomach nonsense. Because again, some of us people, we stomach too much nonsense. You draw no boundaries and then your partner disrespects you too much. So those are things that need to be clear. But then what effect does it have? A boy child who is raised without the mother sometimes may find it hard in life to live a normal family life with a wife. Because if you learn from what you see. You see how your father treats your mother, you see how your father talks to your mother, you see how your father and your mother are relating in the house and how they are going about your school fees, your feeding, and so on. And that is the best school because you start learning from home. So now in a situation where the father is alone, he's going to the market, he's buying the groceries, he's buying the food, he's probably paying the house help. It's a lot of confusion. So it has an effect on the boy child. And for some of them, it makes them either not treat women right in future or even refuse to marry altogether or have a lot of contempt for the institution of marriage. So in as much as possible, it is best if both parents would raise their children. But again, if it is toxic, then you'd rather live happily separately.
As a lawyer, we find that the law does not even allow kids who are below 18 to be with the father. But in some cultures, we find some fathers who are just like, my children, I'll have to stay, even if we separate them today. And these are young kids, maybe even girls or even boys, and they insist on taking the kids by themselves.
Let me first explain the true position of the law is that it doesn't say that the mother has a right over children or the father. Every case is unique and every case is treated based on the submissions that are made before a judge. If you have a good lawyer and they are able to submit that the mother of these children is probably Levy, she's probably gonna come home late, she's probably going to introduce 15 husbands per month to that house, and so on and so forth, the court will rightfully grant custody to the father. If it is proven before court that maybe the wife is of unsound mind, and once in a while they are bipolar, they get angry, they beat up, they do all sorts of crazy things. So the judges are not stuck and bound to saying that children must stay with the mother. Legally, it is what is submitted before the court. And the court weighs. And by the way, nowadays, they're even asking the children to come and they see the children in chambers. They even send children officers. And the report of the children officer is very important. You'd think that they've just sent a junior guy from the children office off. But that junior guy will come to the home sometimes and take notes. And sometimes tell the parents to go to the bedroom and they sit in the sitting room with the children and they ask a few questions. Those officers usually write a report that has got a huge impact on what decision will be important. Because if they come and discover, oh, the father is there once a month, he's probably the kind of guy who has got 15 girlfriends all over the city, and he sleeps here, sleeps there, he's never home on time, he's drunk, he has bad company, people who will probably influence the children negatively. They want to come and smoke in the sitting room and drink in the sitting room. Then the court will not allow that father to have the children. So it's usually the overriding principle is the best well-being of the children. That's what the court looks at. What is in the best interest of the children? Who, for example, would be able to provide them with shelter? Who, for example, would be able to take them to school? Some children might say, Dad is good, he takes us to school, he comes to school meetings, he checks our results, our mom doesn't even know how we perform in school. If children say that, then there's a very high likelihood that the children will go to the father. So even people used to say, even when you separate, oh, property will go to the wife. No, the law has changed a lot. The law is now on a balance of probabilities. They listen to the case, they look at the circumstances, and they make a decision in the best interest of the child.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then for those fathers from those cultures, or even women, there are those who say, I can never leave my children. Maybe you are all those things that you just mentioned.
Yes.
They do all the bad things that are bad for their children.
Yes.
But they insist. They even steal them from school. What effect does that have?
Number one, some of these people, it's about interest. They think that probably if I take the children, it will force the other spouse to give me money to support the children. However, what we do at Kilimani Mediation Center, we help parents agree mutually. Co-parenting can be done and it happens. You just need to agree, where will the children stay for the week? I have just concluded one last week for a very wealthy family, by the way. And they have agreed that the man will stay with the children from Monday to Friday when they are in school, because he lives in a good estate. He lives in a place that most of the good schools are near there. He had bought another house and given to the wife as a gift. Told the wife, we have disagreed, but I'll not kick you out on the streets like a dog. I have given you an apartment in some estate. So you take that apartment. That's my gift to you. So the children usually leave on Friday at 3 p.m. and they are very excited, because when they leave at 3 p.m., the mother sends a vehicle or comes in person to pick them on Friday. That was the arrangement we signed. And she stays with those children throughout the weekend. Now, the beauty is the mother is also a Christian, and they don't go to the same church with the husband. She goes to a different church, and the children prefer the mother's church. So she's with them throughout the weekend. On Sunday in the evening at around 6 or 7, she usually takes them back to the gate where the husband is now living with another wife. And the children go in and they are very happy. So I usually tell parties, stop this nonsense of fighting with your other spouse through the children. That's the most horrible thing you can do as a mother. If you want to fight your ex-husband, fight him as him, not through the children. If you want to fight your ex-wife, fight her as your ex-wife. This thing of saying, because she loves these children, I want to take the children from her so that I can punish her, you're a foolish man. If you are trying to take the children from your husband so that you can punish him, you're a foolish woman. Take the children only if it is in the best interest of the children. Always think about, where are the children happy? Involve them in these conversations. And some of them, no matter how young they are, if someone is in class 4, class 3, class 2, they'll probably tell you, Dad, as long as you take me for bouncing castle on Sunday, this particular place, that is what makes them happy. That is their world. And you have to reduce yourself to their world. And they will prefer the parent who can do that. They will tell you, I don't like this school, but this school probably has got chapati for lunch, and that's the school I want. And it's cleaner and it's better, and I have good friends there. So as a parent, you ask yourself, if that school is where the wife is, why can't she stay with the children, and you become the parent who comes to see the children? So what I usually advise parents is, co-parent. Choose to agree and say, you and I it's not working. But for the sake of the children, let's come up with a mature arrangement. And children adapt so fast. Let them know that our parents have agreed that they are both our parents, but they can't live together.
Well, I'm sure and quite sure that you are talking about an average Mindro families.
Yes.
There are other families who just maybe the mother, the wife is just an housewife in the rural areas, and the man just decides to kick you. I've also met several of them to kick you out, and just because it's culture, or the Jorincheke or any other clan elders sit down and say the children belong to the man and just take them. The children might not even be willing. What does the law say about that?
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Number one, the law, now this is law 101.
Yeah.
The law says that African cultural law is applicable in Kenya to the extent that it is not repugnant to justice and morality. So you can use the Njurinjeke law, you can use the Agikuyu traditional law, you can use the Maasai law, as long as that law does not become ugly in the face of justice or ugly in the face of morality. For example, if our traditional cultural law says that we have to do FGM on girls, now to the extent that it has now become repugnant to justice, then that law would not be applied. If there is, for example, an African customary law that says girls are not supposed to go to school past Form 4 or past Class 8, now that has become repugnant to justice, it's repugnant to morality. Why are you keeping the girl child at home and taking the boy child to school? So we will allow you. By the way, the law is very nice. You know, you want to use the Njurincheke law, it's fine. But then at some point there will be a limit. If we realize that now justice is being affected, if we realize that it is immoral, you want to marry off this girl at the age of 16, then that law dies there. And the supreme law of the land takes over, the constitution, which now guarantees every child freedoms to education, right to life, and so on and so forth. So this is the beauty about our law. And people usually are told, present yourself before court. Judges, for you to become a judge, you need to have practiced law for 15 years. There's a reason. For you to become a magistrate, you need to have practiced for at least 3 to 5 years. There's a reason. Because then you internalize and you put yourself in the shoes of the child and apply the law to make a decision that is in the best interest of the child.
Like I just said, this is mostly applying for middle class, those people who are going to
Yes,
school.
now those people who
Now
are those people who are in the rural area.
in the rural area, and there are many of them, they are suffering.
poor,
They don't even know about the law, and
you are
poor.
poor and
Yeah.
you've been sent out by your husband
Yeah,
and he's been left with the children.
yeah.
Sometimes I ask, if I have nothing to feed myself and I take 3 children with me, what am I doing? There are times you postpone your fights for tomorrow. I have seen women who have left in tears and left their children and told their children, I'll come back. And then gone and looked for a way and told even those Njurinjekes or even the community leaders that I will not ask to have my children now. I will only ask that I be allowed to see them every so often. And even if you go to the children's department, forget about the court and just plead your case and say, I am a mother who's not been allowed to see your children. They have a right to give orders telling the husband or the father of the children to allow you to see your children every so often. As you see them every so often, on this other hand, you are working hard to try to build yourself and get some resources and begin life again. And God usually is very close to the afflicted, for those who read the Bible. So in a situation like that, then you become the afflicted person. And if you trust in God and work hard, then He blesses you and the work of your hands. And when you come back, by the time you come back, maybe in 2 years or a year, but then during such circumstances, I've seen people get visas very easily. God is very close to the heart of the afflicted. I'm not a preacher. So you try as much as possible to say, this is not a fight I want to fight now, even if I wanted, I don't have the means. And because the children are safe with the father, they are eating, they are sleeping, he's probably not abusive, he's just not good to you. You allow him for some time, you go and regroup. It happens in life, even militaries regroup, and then come back and fight that fight another day. But don't be impoverished, unable to provide, you've been kicked out, you have nothing, and then you want to carry children with you to go and give them the nothing that you do not have.
I've had cases where young people meet and then maybe they love one another and they have a child, and all of a sudden when they break up, and maybe the parents of the girl, they tell the boy, you can never see this child again until you are able to pay the dowry. These people are not married. Of course, traditional things they'll do. How fair is that to the child?
First and foremost,
And maybe he's not even like he wants to take the child just to see his child, but he's not able to pay all that crap they are talking about.
First and foremost, I need to address the men. I think men don't understand what dowry is. For those people who are older and they understand, a person used to go for an African wedding and they were allowed to marry. If on the night of that wedding you found out that she's not a virgin, they used to return your dowry in full. Dowry is payable to virgins. Now today I'm seeing somebody has been a community wife all over here giving things for free. Now she wants them to be paid for in the name of dowry. Men, go and check with every African community, even the Muslims today. Dowry was payable to virgins. You have been here all over loitering the whole of Nairobi. We know you've been a community girlfriend. And then now you come and say, for this which I have been giving out for free to every other person like biscuits, now I want a dowry paid for it. Dowry was payable for virgins. Let that be very clear.
In all cultures?
In all cultures. I have not seen a culture where people used to come and pay. That doesn't happen in the African. So you cannot say you're an African, but when it comes to issues of dowry and virginity, you're not an African. If you're an African, you're an African all through. So for me, if I came to that home, I would tell them, by the way, go back to your traditions. Dowry was not paid for people who were not virgins. It was only paid for virgins. So that's the reality. You may like me for it, you may hate me for it, but that's the truth.
But now, what happened to this child?
I have always said, sometimes people bring commercial interests because now this is a parent trying to milk money from a young man. And what you do as a young man, if you don't have money, you can make a report to the children's department. You can try to see if they can give orders that you'll be allowed to see your child. Or go to court if you can. Sometimes you go, and people don't understand that sometimes there's a way you file a petition, which I don't like the way it's worded, but in word it's worded as a pauper. And then the state gives you a lawyer. That's one thing people don't know, that there are lawyers available to be, especially for criminal matters. And sometimes even children matters. If it is such a, because it's a very emotive thing and you're poor. So the state kind of gives you an advocate to stand in your case and, just fight for you and trying to see that you get back your child. It's never easy. That's why I say sometimes before you get there, try not to get there. I mean, if you realize a time will come when you will have a conversation about one parent not seeing their child, you better now calm down and say, let us co-parent. Na hata hiyo ya geshagi ni possible. This young girl can wake up and say, you know what, I got married here. You don't like me, we don't agree. Let me go back to my mother's house. Yeah? Let's have peace. But then tell your people that if I ever come here on a Saturday or a Sunday, I want to see my children, I'll be allowed to see them. And she can probably meet them in the local church. Like, in the village, there's that church that people always go to. So she's allowed to come to that church, see her children, go buy them lunch, spend the whole Sunday with her, send them back to the husband's house. It's all about having intelligent and mature conversations and getting to a point where we say, I don't like you anymore. And you can't stand me at all. But we have to agree on the children. And so these are kind of the conversations that we have at Kilimani Mediation Center. We tell you, I'm not a counseling psychologist. I'm not even here to tell you to love one another or to try. I don't even want to hear what you disagreed about. Mediation is future looking. It's not past looking. Counseling psychology is past looking. It can go as far as your family background because it helps you resolve this problem. Someone is probably dealing with a trauma. Mediation is from here tunaenda wapi?
What next?
It's very logical. It's not emotional. Mediation is what is the logical thing to do. How do we do it? Just promise she'll be allowed to see her children. That's all, yeah. And hakuna shida ya. Boom.
Do you think some of those things we are talking about are influenced by parents?
Yes.
It's the parent who comes to some point, you guys, you are like, okay, and then all of a sudden your parent says, oh, we don't like that woman, or we don't like that man, and the influence. What do you think of such parents?
First, you cannot change your father. You cannot change your mother. And we are required to honor them. I have always said if I had toxic parents, I would move my family to even a mabati house if I was living in my parents' place. But have my family far from my family. You know, family that I'm forming far from the family I come from. Although there are these mother-in-laws who will always follow you and come and stay in your house and disturb your wife. But again, it goes back, those are psychosocial problems. Those ones are best dealt with psychiatrists, because how do you explain a mother who leaves the husband? And many women do that. I've not heard of men who go and say, I'm going to live with my children. But women do that. Mother-in-law ataenda kwa mtoto wake akae. Lakini kusikia father-in-law, like my father used to be, mimi nilale kwa wenyewe. Atalala akienda. He'll drive even at midnight. He can't spend a night at somebody's house. Unless it is absolutely and completely impossible for him to go home.
Just put yourself in the mind of that young man whose mother has moved to his house to interfere with his wife. How would it be like if you are the one?
You just pray that your father is alive.
Sometimes you respect, because like you're saying, respect your parents and you can't change them. Here she comes and you see she's messing you up. What you do?
What you do, you see, we are still Africans. You can't shout at your mother and you can't hate your wife. So as a man, you go and, if your father is alive, you go and tell your father, by the way, your wife now, my mother, is disturbing us. Because he has authority over the wife. If that doesn't happen, look for brothers and sisters to your own mother and sit them quietly and nicely and tell them, this is what I am going through. I don't want my mother in my house. They will talk to her.
And this actually, usually, these are not people maybe who have husbands or what. Mostly the single mothers. They think like what they were getting from their sons, the wife is getting. And actually, I think I've had a lot of young people complaining their mothers have really messed up their family.
We need to solve this problem in a futuristic way. We need to start telling anybody who is 40 today,
tell them
that in 10, 15, 20 years, you will be that father-in-law or mother-in-law. Your investment plan for your future must not be your children. Ati wacha, nikifikisha 50 watoto wangu watakuwa wananilisha. That's a bad idea. Start thinking of something you can do in your 50s. Hata kama ni kujenga tu nyumba tu mabati mahali uko na space that can give you, yes, rental income in your 50s and 60s. Don't make your children your plan and then say, si niliwasomesha, sasa nikae munifeed. Because then you feel like you have a right over their income, which is not correct. So let's solve this problem futuristically. Let's start with those generations who are here and say in 10, 15 years from now, we don't want to see what we have been seeing. Let it be like, in the 90s, in the 2020s, this
children
is what used
investment.
To happen. Yeah, it used to happen. But let it be like, the way we say, when we were young, unga ya chapo ilikuwa inawekwa kwa kabati, ni ya Christmas, kulikuwa na vikombe za wageni. Let us have this mother-in-law issue becoming an issue of the past. Something we shall be looking back and say, you remember how mother-in-laws used to do things? That's what we want to do.
Now that you speak about that, and we always talk about older people, and these are some of the things that we are experiencing, the bad things that they are experiencing at old age. So when they are old, they say, oh, my son since he got married to that woman, he cannot even remember home. They don't understand this is somebody else who is trying to build their own life, and they are clinging. I think it's that thinking that they were investment to them. And you still, as a man, you want to be humble, you want to show your parents respect, you are fearing what people will say what should you do?
To some extent, it's also true that some parents are justified in their calling. I have seen men who have not been able to buy a water tank in their home, and they are building a house at the home where the wife came from. They are building a house like I get married, and then where I married from, I have already built a good house for my mother-in-law. I have bought them a cow, they are milking, they have an income. But where I came from as a man, I have never even bought a tank, a water storage tank. Sometimes when men become, or when men fall in love or grow in love, or become stupid about love, whichever is more accurate, they make decisions where you become very self-denying to please someone else, and sometimes to your own detriment. So I think I'd also like to ask those people who are in marriages to be very balanced, to ujiite kamukutano, as they say. Hapo nyuma ya tent, you ask yourself, unajigonga akili, wait, am I okay? Is it a sound decision to go and build a house at the home where my wife came from before I can even build a toilet at home? And also, it's also sometimes unfair to women. I have seen you both work in Nairobi, and then you go and build a house in Kisii or Kakamega or Bungoma, where your husband comes from, and then you separate. You know, you can't send your husband away from where he was born. That's his ancestral home. So you end up going home to your mother's house, and you probably contributed more money for the construction of a house somewhere in Bungoma. So I've always told couples, if you have to invest, do not invest in the ancestral home of your man or the ancestral home of your woman.
Buy a neutral place.
Get a neutral place. Get a neutral place. Hata kama itakuwa mbali. Get a neutral place where you both have an equal say. Because huyu bwana huwezi mfukuza kwao. Ama umama kama mlijenga kwao huwezi mfukuza kwao. Na huwezi enda kuishi kwao.
If you are to talk to those mothers out there, and especially single mothers who cling to their sons and daughters and think it's their right all along to get what they educated them, and they must get everything from them and not their wives, what would you tell them?
A man has got two families. The family he comes from and the family that he wants to build or is building. And all of them are important to him. Don't make life impossible for this man, because you need to put yourself in his shoes and ask yourself, if this was your son, would you, or if this was your son, would you, this is what happens to ladies, and I like the way they look at life. When you're a mother and your son is taking a lot of money to the other side, like he got married, you think he's taking money to that wife and their family.
You think?
It is becoming very annoying. But when you are a young girl and you are being wooed for marriage, you want a man who spends on you more than they spend on their own mother. So for women, it's very interesting. And I have always told people, women are only loyal to their own feelings. They're only loyal to what they want. That's why you hear a woman who live here, go get married to King Julius Caesar, the man who ruled the whole known world, but still cheat on Julius Caesar. I mean, this guy gives you time, he gives you money, he gives you a king's life, he gives you everything. Then once you have everything, you're like, this everything is too much. Now let me go to a guy, maybe a security guard, who has got not this everything. So it's very complex and very difficult, but again, it's life.
Here are the young men and women out there. One time we had Professor Mworia on the show, and we talked about neglecting the older parent, the older persons, their parents at their old age after they have invested so much on you. So I remember Mworia, I don't care, hata kama una job, uko nyumba ya mabati, bebana na wazazi wako uende na huko. What could you say about that?
I think that's one approach. I've always said, when a rat comes to the house, you can hit it the head, you can use red rat, you can use poison, you can use a cat to eat the rat. You can even use a trap. The problems of people in old age will not have one formula fits all. Some parents will be best helped through what you're suggesting, what Mworia was suggesting. That is one suggestion.
Carry them.
He's right, carry them. Others will be, you come to where they live, probably if they're in an urban setting, set for them up a shop. I've seen people do that, or a hardware, or some business of some sort that keeps them busy and lets them earn some money if you can afford. And then others even go to another extent of, they take it to the next step and say, wait, I think Kenya needs to invest in homes for old people, because that's where the world is, and we are going to get there. I mean, the Catholic former Archbishop, may he rest in peace, Cardinal Maurice
Maurice
Otunga,
Otunga,
he
yeah.
went to live with the old people and he felt happier and more comfortable there. So let's also now start looking at those homes as places that we can invest in. If you are young and you say, wait a minute, what if I do a beautiful home for the old? Make it even very high standard, or make it low standard, or make it whatever. There is no one formula fits all. Let's look of all best approaches to taking care of old people, and let's employ all best approaches. There are families that will choose the old home. Everybody will choose an approach that works for their family.
Fanya Mambo, one of the challenges that we have as a country on issues pertaining the older people is having no policies and there's no Sharia, no law. There's nothing that regards the older people exist. But realistically, by in the next 20 years, each one of us, and Jongeze 20 years, we will be those older people we are talking about. And there's no policy. And why, I don't know. We've tried to push policies for older people, senior citizen bill. It goes to Parliament and it is flopped. It has their medical care cover. It has the way, I mean, the way they feed, the way they are taken care of, the way their transportation, all these goodies about older people without bothering actually their children. Because in Article 57 of the Constitution of Kenya, which is the supreme law, it says it is the responsibility of state and family to take care of older people. Now, what you do say about members of parliament who don't even care? They pass other bills. We've been talking about bills lately, but that bill has. What you do tell these people?
I will not tell parliamentarians anything. I will tell those institutions and organizations that have been supporting. But then let me tell you, when you hear there's a tobacco bill in Parliament, there are interested parties that support it. When you hear there is an adolescent reproductive health policy, there is an organization, probably an organization that is selling family planning stuff and so on and so forth, that is involved. So my suggestion, my recommendation is that we need to start asking ourselves, who are the stakeholders in old age? Because our bunge has proven that there were times they were being given 10,000 in the toilet to pass some funny bills. So we need to get to a place where we ask, what are the stakeholders are doing about it? In the transport sector is because the Matatu Owners Association is pushing, both maybe financially, by strikes, by all sorts of means. So pushing it alone, you'll not even get a member of parliament willing to sponsor that bill if there's no monetary consideration. And I would tell all the NGOs, it's a challenge to you. Why don't you ask yourself, what would it take to have this bill passed?
Actually, we have had even one, it gotten to that point. It was just flopped because it was sponsored by Mheshimiwa Mushomba. They said it's privately sponsored. I don't know who they wanted it to sponsor. Currently, we have one which is sponsored now by the government. It's just before the CSs were fired. It is with the Social Protection Department, and it's yet to go to Parliament. But now the Parliament, of course, they are the final people to say. As the CSOs have been able to draft the bill, very good bill on issues pertaining older people. Now, the problem actually, the other time ended with these people called parliamentarians. And I'm sure they are children of someone. These older people are the people who went to vote for them. And
I think I'll
are
say
we
this
okay
to
as a
Kenyans.
normal?
Kenyans, you gave yourselves this parliament. Now you know it is wrong and bad. You've seen what it's done with finance bill and a few other things. 2027 is coming. There is a bill for older people. Will you vote back the same people who are not? I mean, start thinking of sponsoring. I know you vied last time, and I pray they give you votes. Because if you offer yourself again and they give you votes, then this is one of the things you would run with and champion.
Exactly.
Let us look for people who stand for something before they are even voted for. And this is one of those things. So Kenyans, over to you. Give us leaders who can pass this bill. This one, we have given up on this parliament. In fact, it's just that IBC is not constituted. We would have thrown them out. So just vumilieni kidogo, tujaribu. We look for the right parliament that will pass this bill, not this one.
And hoping our friend Mutua, as the Social Protection and Minister of Labor, you are going to do something about this bill for our senior citizens so we don't have to keep on crying and having it down. So I think, thank you so much, Kinuthia. That is
Thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Our viewers, don't forget to subscribe and share these educative and inspiring videos. It's very educative. Make sure it gets in somebody. It might change somebody's the way they think. It might not be you. It could be somebody else. So we thank you so much, Kinuthia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Thank you.